Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's E-G-G-B-U-R-T, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
That Egbert, he just won't let up on us, Willie. He just is going to beat that into the ground. He's making fun of our of what we call our show. Okay, I have not done this for a while. I love doing this. And I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to hit a button right here, and something's going to happen. And I love doing this. I just absolutely positively, I love making phone calls. And there goes the phone. And we're going to see who answers.
Good morning.
Is this Mary Elizabeth Coleman?
It is. Is this Brad?
It's me. Now, I think I've told you, by the way, first off, before we get going on this, I want to tell you that John Combest, and this is my fault, John Combest can hear you, but he can't interact with you. And is that the crypt door that's closing? Is that what that is? Are you doing the Thriller thing on me? Is that?
Is that a feature or a bug that I can't hear John?
It's definitely a feature.
He says it's definitely a good thing. Okay.
Are we live? Are we on the air?
Oh, yeah, we're on the air right now. Yeah. I mean,
you should tell people that when they answer the phone. Like, hey, you're on the air.
Hey, you know what? You're a good person. Normally when I call people, and John will, admit to this, I will say, hey, you're on the air, no potty mouth now, because I don't want to get a call. But I know that Mary Elizabeth Coleman would not be potty mouth no matter what,
We're
right?
new friends. That's why you think this.
Right. Okay. So I understand that you are once again in the limelight of people are coming after you for the abortion situation that you're working on. Can you give us a little bit more information on that?
Sure, but I thought that's great. I can talk about that, but I thought we were going to talk about encouraging your listeners to decline to sign if they get approached by people who are trying to put abortion on the ballot. So,
yes, that's essentially that's the big picture. And I'll be honest with you. Can I ask you a question? You're an attorney, and you've set me straight on a couple things already. Is it legal for them to solicit signatures on private property?
Not on private property. So I don't know why. I really actually am kind of baffled by this, but I seem to be quite a lightning rod for people. And so there were signature gatherers that were at the local library in Arnold, and that's my library I take my kids to. And when I heard they were going to be gathering signatures there, I decided I was going to go, right? And just tell people, hey, I wouldn't sign that. There's not protections in place for your private information. All of that can be sunshined, your signature, all of your information. You don't know what they're going to do with that data, with that private information. So I would just not sign it. And they went ballistics. They accused me of calling the police, which I did not do. And but I absolutely was there telling people, hey, I wouldn't sign that. Don't sign that.
Well, now, let's give a big picture on this, is that there's a couple of intersecting paths that are moving along at the same rate. This is essentially an amendment to the Missouri Constitution that essentially would allow abortions, correct?
Yeah, and it's not a return to Roe. I would just encourage everybody to read the actual language, because what it does is really radical. It allows abortion paid for by taxpayers, which most people don't agree with, even if you're pro-choice. It says that, you can have abortion up until the moment of birth. It says that it gets rid of, if you look at Article 5, this is really serious, medical malpractice lawsuits against women who are harmed during abortions. And it's so sloppily written, it could be all prenatal care. It says reproductive care. So that could mean even medical malpractice for people who are trying to get pregnant, or just routine obstetrics and gynecological care. So it's pretty extreme. This is kind of what happens when things go through the initiative petition processes. The language doesn't get vetted by the public. There's no public comment period. And so the intentions of even the people who are trying to put something on the ballot, it's maybe not written in the most clear way, and it would have benefited from some vetting process. So that's the thing that people are most recently angry with me about. But also this week in the legislature, we were able to defund Planned Parenthood through the state statutes. And so the governor hopefully will sign that. And then also, as if that wasn't enough to make people mad, who are, pro-choice or whatever, or just liberal in general, I'm leading the effort in the Senate to bring initiative petition reform to the ballot either in August or November. So I think it should be harder to change our state constitution than to change state statutes.
See, that's the angle when I said there's a dual thing coming here, is because you've got the two different items that are colliding. You've got one group that's out there, well, actually more than one. They're trying to do the same thing with gambling. Aren't they trying to do the same thing with gambling, the initiative petition on that?
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 things. They're trying to do, raising the minimum wage again. They're trying to add ranked choice voting, which is a disaster.
Right.
And then there's some like sports book, trying to be able to bet on things, which I think a lot of people support. And then also a couple new efforts to add a new casino.
Right. Now, the crazy thing for me on this is that what is supposedly with the abortion petition, essentially, and you're the expert on this, I'm not, but it would be very similar to what happened in Ohio. Am I correct on that?
Well, no, because what they're putting forward is way more radical than what they put on the ballot in Ohio.
But but wasn't it an initiative petition in Ohio where they actually modified the Constitution in Ohio?
Yeah. So that's right. So the structure and what they're trying to do is similar to every other state: Kansas, Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan. I mean, this is a process that's been used 11 times across the country, and every time it's been put on the ballot, it has passed, although this version is the most extreme of any that's been tried in the country. Really, the Democrats only have abortion. It's the only thing that people agree with them on right now. Pro-lifers have really lost the culture. Most people don't hold the views that I have, which is that all life is sacred. And so they just keep wanting to talk about abortion. Well, we're trying to talk about the economy and the border and election integrity and, all these other things that people are mad about.
Well, there are some people that would say that the Republican Party is sacrificing voters by being so hardline. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, I guess I would just say, either you believe that all life is sacred or you don't. And so I understand. Listen, I hold a number of minority views. I'm very conservative, and most people aren't as conservative as I am. And so I recognize that serving in the legislature, but that doesn't mean you change your belief system.
No, I hear what you're saying.
I think that for most people, abortion isn't their top issue.
Well,
they're voting their pocketbook. They care about all of these other things. And for the people who abortion is their top issue, it was already their top issue.
Well, I think not only their pocketbook, but I think more and more you see the influence of what's happening with the border and the situation.
People are rightly very scared and furious at the Biden administration for just opening up our southern border. And we've got to be arresting and deporting everybody who's come here illegally.
Right. When you look at the sanctuary cities, and I use those in air quotes, that have said, hey, come on, now saying, no, don't come. You're going like, okay, if it's gotten that bad that the sanctuary cities are essentially doing a 180, you got to take a hard look at what's going on with this. I mean, wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh, for sure. Listen, I mean, I think the smartest thing that Governor Abbott in Texas ever did was start shipping migrants up to these sanctuary cities and saying, you guys open the borders, you guys want them, go. Well, now, the problem is, of course, that creates this is so in the weeds and kind of dorky, but the census and the population is for votes in the U.S. Congress is based on not citizens, but just people who live there. And so this is a long-term play by the Democrats to try to take back power. And so we have to arrest and deport people. We don't know what terrorists have crossed the border. It's a total disaster. Well,
John and I have talked about this several times. The thing that bothers me is you see some of these, video reports where you see these nothing but what they call military-aged men, essentially 1835 young men coming across the border by themselves. And you're going like, okay, what's the deal with this? You know what I mean? No family. I get the family thing.
Yeah, and then you've got these liberal, kids basically with this pro-Palestinian movement saying, chanting death to America or from the river to the sea, calling for genocide, all the while wanting us to pay off their student loans. It's the most absurd thing you've ever seen in your life.
John and I talk about this all the time. This is very problematic to me. My father was a World War II veteran, and through my life, I have numerous Jewish friends. Matter of fact, one of my best friends I used to work with at the old KSLQ was Jewish, and I actually went to a synagogue many times and was sort of invited to a lot of events with the Jewish community. And I got to know quite a few of them, and I still to this day know a lot of Jewish people, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, they have essentially said, look what happened to us. Never forget what happened to us in World War II with, actually pre-World War II with the Holocaust and the whole bit. I can't understand how anybody can be anti-Jewish. It just boggles my mind.
I grew up in the 80s, right? And I remember learning about the Holocaust and just being so horrified about Crystal Night and like all of these events leading up to the genocide of the Jews in Europe and thinking, there's no way that could ever happen here. And now we're seeing assaults on Jewish students. We're hearing universities say, if you're Jewish, you shouldn't come to class because we can't protect you. You have pro-Palestinian protesters. Heck, they're on my sidewalk in front of my house now for the last month, every Saturday or Sunday protesting me because I support Israel. It's crazy. It's just bizarro land.
I want to come back to that, but let me just give you a little, and I'm sort of a history geek. My father was very much of a history geek because he lived World War II, but I talked to John about this last week. You remember our president, Dwight Eisenhower, correct?
Of course.
Do you know the job that Dwight Eisenhower had right before he became president? Do you know this little trivia fact?
Was he in charge of the visas?
No, he was in charge. He ran Columbia University. He was the what have you called, the head honcho, the president, the whole bit.
The provost,
right,
or the president?
The provost. And the interesting thing about it is if you go back to your history of World War II, when the Americans finally got into the area where the German concentration camps and where the Holocaust happened, he was so taken aback by this horrendous treatment and the murder and the essentially the execution of all these Jewish people that he first off took all the residents of the town near the prison camps, made them go through the prison camps, look at all the horror, stacked up bodies, the whole bit. Then he brought in the media and he said, bring your cameras, record this, because we never ever want to have this happen again in the history of the world. And it's like,
and then you saw the same thing repeating on October 7th. Kfar Aza, which is one of the kibbutz on the border in Gaza. I was just there in August, and that's where I can't even say without emotion the violence that Hamas perpetrated against just families who are living in a kibbutz is like a farming community.
I don't understand it. We're talking with Mary Elizabeth Coleman, and John laughs at me. I knew a Mary Louise, and I still want to call you Mary Louise, but
I answer to Mary Beth, Mary Elizabeth, Mary Catherine, Mary
all
Ann,
those different things.
Mary Grace.
Okay.
I mean, all those versions. The only one that I give you side-eye for is if you just call me Mary, because basically my husband and my mom are the only ones who call me Mary.
Gotcha. Okay, go back to what you said a minute ago, and John mentioned this. You have protesters at your house just on the weekends, not 7 days a week?
No, not 7 days a week. It's just on Saturday or Sunday afternoons. They show up with a foghorn and they stand on the sidewalk and chant things that they don't understand. And, it's just bizarre. We live in a strange world.
So why are they after you? I mean, I would think that, you're a state person. You don't really have any say-so on this on a federal level. Why are they after you?
It's a really good question to ask them. They don't have good answers. I offered them the second week they came by. I wasn't home the first week. My husband was and the kids. And the second week I offered them some Topo Chicos and thought, well, if you're going to stand out here on an afternoon and it's sunny, do you want a drink? And they were horrified that I offered them a drink. And then, I said, you guys, you're not changing my mind. What are you doing? And they're like, we'll be back. Like, oh, okay.
So, do they chant and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. They chant, Bloody Mary and I don't know, whatever other things. It's bizarre.
But
it's just crazy.
It's not about abortion. It's about the...
No, these protesters aren't about abortion. I, unfortunately, am protested at, my private fundraisers and at my office. And at the intersection near my house. And I really, Brad, I don't understand how, but somehow I'm the most hated by the left. But no, these protesters are pro-Palestinian protesters. And, I will say I did proudly sponsor a resolution that was voted out of the Senate that's waiting for the speaker to refer. It's been referred to committee, but for the chairman to have a hearing on it, urging our delegation to support Israel and to stand with Israel federally. But, I mean, that seems kind of, not super, I don't know. I'm shocked that they're that upset about it.
I don't quite understand it. If my father was still alive, World War II veteran, 40 years in the Army, I can hear him, being very vehemently opposed to this. And I could see my father showing up at your house having a little talk with these people, if you get what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm glad. I mean, I will say I don't think they're well. And so I'm glad that he's not engaging with them, or that, that people aren't showing up to engage with them. I quickly realized after offering them a drink that they didn't want to engage. They're there for social media posts, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, we got a couple more minutes, and then I have to do something for you, which you're either going to love or you're going to hate. Okay.
Okay.
You're running for Secretary of State. You were CD3.
Wait, but I listened to your show, and I thought the rule was you were not having all of these candidates on to talk about the Secretary of State, that it's boring, that nobody wants a parade of candidates, that it's too much.
Can I be bluntly honest with you about something?
Yeah.
If I sent Mike Carter $100 bill and said, be on my station, he would refuse. So we don't have to we don't have to worry about him, because for some reason he hates me and he hates the radio station. I don't know.
Oh, I bet he doesn't hate you.
He does.
How could anyone hate you?
He hates me, but that's a whole different story.
Hey, Brad, you bring up a good point. How could people help the Decline to Sign effort this weekend?
Okay, John said, I don't know if you didn't hear that. Once again, we have a problem with this. How can people help the Decline to Sign thing this weekend?
Yeah, so this is really important. Share on your social media, Decline to Sign, Missouri Right to Life. You can go to their social media, or the Missouri Stands with Women. Just Google either of those things and you'll see Decline to Sign, posts. Share that on your social media. If you see somebody collecting signatures, ask them questions. Spend some time with them. Spend quite a bit of time with them. Make them explain to you what they're trying to do. If they're talking to you, they can't be gathering signatures from somebody else. You could, I think that protecting innocent life is a spiritual battle. You could pray while you're standing next to them. They're probably not going to be super comfortable with that and are going to leave and stop their efforts. So, I think that this is really important. This is, even if you're not as pro-life as I am, and I understand that not everybody shares those views, it's important to understand, not a return to Roe. This is very, very extreme, and it strips under Article 5 prenatal protections and malpractice protections for women. And so just encourage you, first of all, to understand. And then if you've signed because you didn't know what you were doing, you can go, Missouri Right to Life has on their website a process to remove your signature. They're pretty close to getting the right number of signatures, and every signature matters. So if you signed as a listener and wish you hadn't, you can fill out an affidavit and send it to the Secretary of State's office, and they'll remove your signature.
Interesting. Now, I'm going to ask you a weird question. I want to hit a button here, and I want to tell me if you hear this, okay?
No stairway. Okay. Denied.
Did you hear that?
No.
You didn't hear no stairway denied?
No, I didn't.
Okay, you didn't hear this?
Ancient Chinese secret.
You didn't hear that either?
No, I can't hear any of it.
Okay, well, you know what? We
can wrap it there, Brad.
This sort of destroys my thing, because I have created a song for you.
Ah, I'm so excited. I wondered if you did, because I heard some of the other songs that you've created.
But you can't hear it if I play it. Well,
okay, but I promise I will listen to it later today, and I will send John, I don't have your contact information, I don't think, but I'll send John a text message. Oh, this is your cell phone number.
This is my cell phone number, yeah.
Okay, I'll text you my response.
Now, here's what I need you to do for me, okay? So here's what we're going to do. If you want to listen online, you can go to bjshow.co, and we're going to take a break right now. We'll come back, and I will play the song, the first thing out of the break, okay? So if you want to listen live, you can hear it.
Okay, so I'll hang up, and I'll go to the website and listen live.
Right, okay, and thank you very much. If people want to get in contact with you, we always do this. How would people contact you about whatever we talked about this morning?
Yeah, so MaryElizabethColeman.com. is the best way. You can find all my social media links and reach out to me there. If you're calling about official state business, call the office. If you're calling about campaign stuff, go to MaryElizabethColeman.com. I'm on most of the social media channels. You can reach out to me through there.
Okay, Mary Elizabeth, I appreciate that. And by the way, I have to tell you that when I had you on before, you corrected me, and I did appreciate that about the fact that, no, I'm being sincere because of the fact that I sometimes make fun of my own industry, the media, that we say things, and I'm a victim of listening to, and if you want to know the truth, the reason I said what I did about the Texas abortion situation is because that's what I heard on NPR, and you corrected me, and and
now we have the whistleblower letter, so you know for a fact that they're pushing an agenda.
Don't even get me going about that. Okay, Mary Elizabeth Coleman, thank you very much. We're going to take a break.
Thanks, Fred.
We'll be right back, and we will play the new Mary Elizabeth Coleman song.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?